You're only after the inheritance, aren't you? But you won't get a cent. Her cold expression was so intense it sent a chill through me, leaving my heart frozen for a brief moment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sitting across from me, my mother-in-law shot me a look filled with blatant contempt, and her gaze pierced my chest like a sharp blade. I was left speechless. Her face showed no emotion, a detachment so deep it made all my efforts feel utterly pointless. Do you really think that's what I believe? My voice finally broke the silence, but it sounded empty, even to my own ears. Of course you won't get it. The $3 million will go to my eldest son's family. Her words were cold and deliberate, dripping with calculated cruelty. No matter how faithfully I had cared for her, there was not even a hint of gratitude in her eyes. Inside, I felt something break apart. Memories flooded my mind, 10 years of looking after her, sacrificing my own life, preparing meals late at night, administering her medication, taking her to countless doctor visits. Now, it all seemed like it had been for nothing. I've taken care of you for 10 years. Is this how you've always viewed me? My voice shook, but I forced myself to remain composed. Yet her face stayed unchanged, even giving off a smug smile, as though she enjoyed seeing me suffer. I tried to speak calmly, but the indifference in her gaze told me everything I needed to know. My sacrifices meant nothing to her. It doesn't matter, does it? For a moment, I was silent, too drained to argue any further against her cruel, unfeeling words. But then something within me shifted. That was when I knew my life had to change completely. My name is Mary Spears. After my husband passed away, everything in the Spears household changed drastically, but my days continued steadily as I took care of my mother-in-law, Heather. I worked from home as an illustrator, tending to her every need. My son Ken had moved out after getting a job, leaving just the two of us in this large house. For someone like me, who had lost her parents in an accident at a young age and was raised by relatives, this house had been the family I had always longed for, at least until my husband, Brian, died. But living with Heather was far from peaceful. She had been raised as an only child in a wealthy family, always used to having her way. To her, I was still the poor, inferior daughter-in-law she looked down on. "Mary, this dish is bland, don't you think? What happened to those cooking skills from your restaurant job?" She spoke with biting sarcasm, lying in her bed. "I'm sorry, Heather. I'll make it more flavorful next time," I murmured quietly, but deep inside, her words stung like sharp thorns. Every complaint she made seemed to focus on trivial, insignificant things. Even when I hired help a few times a week, she criticized me, claiming a daughter-in-law should care for her elderly mother-in-law personally. Isn't that what's expected? There were times I wondered if I should have left this house when Brian passed away. But this house held so many memories of him and Ken. It was the place where Ken grew up, and where I had spent years building our life. No matter how much Heather hurt me, I just endured it, because I couldn't bear to leave the memories behind. Chris, my brother-in-law, and his wife Natalie lived nearby, but they never offered any help. Chris had been pampered as a child and had never taken his responsibilities seriously. Despite this, Heather doted on him. After Brian passed, I noticed Heather's savings and pension slowly dwindling. "Mother, haven't there been a lot of withdrawals from your account lately?" I asked, concerned. Her response still lingers in my mind. "Chris needed some money. He's the eldest son, after all." I bit my tongue. I knew Chris was reckless with money, and Natalie too spent on luxury brands while neglecting her household duties. Yet Heather never had a word of complaint about Natalie. Natalie is such a sweet girl. A daughter-in-law should know how to navigate situations with grace, she would say. Hearing that made my chest tighten with frustration. No matter how much I did, I realized Heather would never accept me. Soon after my father-in-law died, Chris and Natalie moved closer to the family home. My father-in-law had always been strict and disapproved of Chris's behavior, so I assumed they must have felt relieved when he passed. Since Chris was the eldest son, it made sense he should be near the house. Yet, whenever I asked Chris for help with Heather's care, he would avoid it, saying, "I'm busy with work, Mary. Natalie has a lot on her plate too." Work? I had never seen Chris put in a serious effort at work in my entire life. As for Natalie, I heard she couldn't even manage her household properly, but Heather never criticized her. One day, Ken returned home with exciting news. "Mom, I have something to tell you. I'm getting married." His happy expression warmed my heart. The only reason I had managed to endure this house for so long was because of Ken. Really? Oh, that's wonderful, Ken. I hugged him tightly, a tear of joy welling up in my eyes. Brian, Ken will be happy, won't he? I whispered to my late husband. But even as I celebrated Ken's happiness, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen to my life and Heather's care now. Soon after Ken's visit, Heather suffered a stroke. She woke up in the hospital, her voice faint, repeatedly saying, "I want to go home." My husband and I had discussed putting her in a care facility one day. How heartless can you be? Are you trying to shame us by sending Mother to a facility? This house is everything to me. I want to stay here, Heather had said, her voice filled with the pride of a matriarch and her attachment to the house. Back then, Brian had said, "Mary, we'll manage this together," with such strength and support. His words had comforted me, but now Brian was gone. Caring for Heather had never been easy. Every day, I overheard hurtful whispers from Chris and Natalie. "Poor mother. I wonder if Mary is even caring for her properly. Make sure you sit her up straight or her back will hurt." The two of them never once lifted a finger to help, yet always had something cruel to say. Their words wounded me deeply, but Brian's encouragement kept me going. "Don't let their words get to you, Mary. You're doing enough." His support had been my rock. Then one day, Brian suddenly collapsed. He came home from work, complaining of a headache, lay down, and never woke up again. It was a stroke, sudden and brutal. During the funeral, Chris and Natalie didn't bother to show up until it was all over. It was Ken who stayed by my side and supported me. "Mom, Dad had a beautiful funeral. He would have been proud," Ken said. His words were all it took, and finally, the tears I had been holding back fell. Life after Brian's passing became even more difficult. I continued to care for Heather, all while enduring Chris and Natalie's neglect. "Mom's pension, can you lend me some?" "I'll pay you back soon," Chris said. It wasn't the first time he had asked for money, and it wouldn't be the last. Rather than stopping him, Heather would just hand over the money without question. "Chris is in trouble. We have no choice," she would say. I knew that before his death, Brian had arranged for an inheritance. Heather must have inherited a substantial amount, but Chris had squandered his share. Now, they were fully relying on her pension and savings. "Mary, you should dress a little nicer. Look at me, you need to sparkle a bit more." Natalie laughed, draped in designer brands. Heather nodded approvingly, making my frustration bubble to the surface. On top of that, Chris and Natalie spread rumors about me. "Mary's only doing all this for the inheritance, you know." Hearing those words stirred a strange mixture of anger and disbelief inside me. Despite paying for everything, the caregiver, the medicine, the living expenses, they accused me of being selfish. If I ignored them, their words only became sharper. "See, she's ignoring us again. That's why I can't stand her." Even in those moments, I reminded myself of one thing. This house held Brian's memories. It was where Ken had grown up, and I couldn't give up that easily. The tiles at the entrance were picked out by Brian. He had spent hours comparing colors before finally smiling and saying, "This one feels right." In the living room, faint traces of Ken's childhood scribbles still remained. "I love you, Dad," written in uneven, childlike letters. Seeing those reminders made my chest tighten. But relying on these memories to keep going was taking its toll. Every time I entered Heather's room, her words cut through me like daggers. "Mary, breakfast still isn't here. What are you doing?" I smiled weakly as I placed the tray down. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Today it's rice porridge and soup." "Oh, rice porridge again. You're getting lazy, aren't you?" I wanted to argue, but my exhaustion swallowed the words. All I could manage was a faint apology. As I stepped out of her room, I leaned against the wall and sighed deeply. Was this really okay? I silently asked myself, but I knew there would be no answer. I imagined Brian's voice in my head, like I had so many times before. "You're doing great, Mary." I clung to that memory, even though it seemed to be fading into the fog. Why is it that no matter how hard I try, nothing changes? As I walked back into the living room, a pile of unpaid bills caught my eye. I was paying for everything, the caregiver, the medicine, and the household expenses. How much longer could I keep this up? My phone buzzed with a message from Ken. "Mom, are you okay? I want to bring my fiancé over soon. Do you have a good day for that?" Reading his words brought a brief warmth to my heart. Ken, I just want you to be happy. But even that small flicker of hope was quickly overshadowed by Heather's voice. Mary, turn on the TV for me, will you? Yes, right away, I replied, forcing a smile. Behind that smile, I felt myself slowly fading away. Is this really okay? I kept asking myself, but there was no answer. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I heard the front door open. Instinctively, I stopped what I was doing and looked up. I'm home, Mom, his bright voice echoed through the kitchen, and my heart skipped a beat. Wiping my hands on my apron, I rushed to greet him. Standing there was my son, taller, more mature than I remembered. His broad shoulders and the changes in his face made me pause. Seeing how much he had grown hit me all at once. Why did you call to say you were coming? I wanted to surprise you. Plus, I just wanted to see your face, he said with a simple smile. His words warmed my heart, and I felt tears threatening to spill. Don't cry, Mom. It hasn't been that long, he laughed, though I could see the faintest bit of embarrassment in his eyes. I know, but seeing you today makes me so happy, I said, finally letting a tear escape. For the first time in a long while, my tightly wound heart felt some release. I've got something to tell you, Mom. What is it? I'm getting married. The words froze me in place, and my heart skipped a beat. Really? You're getting married? Yeah, I want you to meet her. She's an amazing person. Hearing the joy in his voice made my chest swell with emotion. Oh, that's wonderful, Ken. We met at work. She's kind, gentle, and honestly, she reminds me of you, Mom, he said casually, but his sincerity was clear. My heart warmed as I realized how happy he was. But then, he hesitated for a moment. Mom, after we get married, I want you to live with us. The words made my mind go blank. Live with Ken and his wife. It was something I had secretly wished for but never thought would actually happen. But what about your grandmother? I asked. I know it's complicated, he said, his voice soft yet filled with determination. But I don't want you to carry everything alone anymore. Tears started to well up again, but I forced them back. Ken, I'd appreciate it, but it's not that simple. I know, Mom, but we're family. Let's figure it out together, he said, his gaze steady. All I could do was nod silently. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Ken's words echoed in my mind. Come live with us. It felt like a dream, but soon reality set in. What about Mother? I knew Ken's fiancé couldn't be expected to take on the burden of Heather's care. My thoughts spun in circles as I stared at the dark ceiling. What am I trying to protect? I had spent 10 years sacrificing my life for Heather, and now I hesitated to choose a new path. If I left, what would happen to her? Images of Chris and Natalie flashed through my mind. Would they really take care of her? I already knew the answer. Of course not, I whispered bitterly to myself. They would just leave her. The thought filled me with anger, but also deepened my despair. I curled up under the blanket, tears streaming down silently. Brian, what should I do? I tried to recall his voice, but all I could remember was his smile, now fading from my mind. A few days later, Ken spoke with Chris about Heather's care. When he returned home, his face was tense, his anger unmistakable. Mom, you won't believe what they said. What happened? Chris told me I should take Grandma with me, he said, frustration shaking his voice. He and Natalie have no intention of taking care of her. They even said some awful things about you. Hearing this, my heart sank. I took a deep breath. Ken, I don't want you to worry about this. Don't say that, Mom. This isn't just your problem, he responded. I appreciated his concern, but at that moment, Heather shocked me with her words. I always thought you saw me as a burden, Mary, a burden. Her words struck me hard, like a slap. You're only here for the inheritance, right? But you won't get a single cent. All of it is going to Chris and Natalie. I froze, my chest tightening in pain as I stared at her cold, unwavering expression. After everything I've done for you these past 10 years, is this what you really think of me? My voice trembled, but she remained indifferent, almost smug. In that moment, something inside me clicked. I understand. I'll leave this house. Heather's face turned pale as the smugness quickly disappeared. You're joking, right? She said, her voice wavering. I'm not joking. I've paid for everything, your care, the household expenses, all of it. From now on, Chris and Natalie can take care of you. Her face became more frantic. They can't handle it. They don't care about me like you do. That's not my problem anymore, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of anger rising inside me. You chose them, didn't you? Her shoulders shook as she struggled to respond. What am I supposed to do without you? I don't know, I replied, but Chris and Natalie are the ones you should rely on now. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. I turned toward Chris and Natalie, who had been called into the living room. What the hell? Why should we take care of her? Chris grumbled. We thought you'd keep handling everything. If that's the case, I said, you can choose to put her in a care facility. I won't stop you. Chris's eyes widened as he finally realized the gravity of the situation. Fine, we'll do it. But don't expect us to do it like you did, he added bitterly, filled with resentment. I turned to Heather one last time. I hope you'll be happy with your choice. Without waiting for a response, I walked away. I packed my things quickly, each burden lightening with every item I gathered. As I stepped out the front door, Heather's voice followed me. Mary, come back. She called, but I didn't turn around. I whispered softly to myself, Goodbye, Mother. As I took my first step outside the house, the cool air brushed against my face, and for the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of freedom. The night was calm, quieter than I had ever noticed before, and all I could hear was the sound of my own steady, resolute footsteps. After leaving Heather's house, I moved in with Ken and his fiancée, Lily. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace settle over me. Their home was warm, filled with a quiet calm that I had almost forgotten. Mom, you can relax now. You don't have to carry everything by yourself anymore, Ken said, his words bringing tears to my eyes. But this time, they were tears of relief. Lily welcomed me with open arms, her bright smile easing my hesitation. Mary, I'm so happy to have you here with us, Lily said, her kindness wrapping around me like a warm embrace. Her warmth made me feel like I belonged, something I hadn't felt in years. As days went by, I settled into my new life. I helped with small tasks around the house while continuing my work as an illustrator. Ken and Lily showed their appreciation each day, saying things like, Thank you, Mary. You've been such a big help. And every time I heard those words, my heart lightened. They might have been small words, but they meant the world to me. I hadn't realized how lonely I had been until I finally felt seen, truly appreciated. One evening, while preparing dinner, Lily came into the kitchen with a smile. You finished early today, Mary, she remarked. I thought I'd help out a little since I had time, I replied, but she just smiled at me. You're always so thoughtful. Thank you, she said as she gently placed her hand on my shoulder. Her simple touch almost brought me to tears. After spending so many years carrying everything on my own, this small act of care felt overwhelming. We're really lucky to have you, she added, her words staying with me as we set the table together. Later that night, the three of us sat around the dinner table, sharing casual conversation. The laughter and warmth made me realize just how far I had come. This life, the quiet, ordinary happiness, was something I had fought for. One day, Lily approached me with a shy smile, her hand resting on her stomach. Mary, I wanted to tell you something, she said. What is it? I asked, sensing her excitement. We're going to have a baby, she said, her words taking me by surprise. My heart swelled with joy. That's wonderful, Lily. I'm so happy for both of you, I replied, tears welling up in my eyes as I reached out to hold her hands. Thank you for sharing this with me. Of course, she smiled. Your family after all. Her words echoed in my mind, family. After everything I had been through, I finally felt like I was part of one again. As the months passed and Lily's belly grew, I busied myself preparing for the baby's arrival. I found joy in the little tasks, folding tiny clothes, preparing meals, and offering support. Mom, you're really excited about this, huh? Ken laughed. Of course, I can't wait to meet my grandchild, I said, my chest swelling with happiness as I looked at him. In the following days, there were small but precious moments, quiet afternoons spent sipping tea with Lily, talking about the future. Have you thought of any baby names yet? I asked. Not yet, but I'll start thinking about it soon, she responded with a gentle laugh, which warmed my heart. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to look forward to the future. When the baby finally arrived, I held the tiny life in my arms, and a tear rolled down my cheek. Welcome to the world, little one, I whispered. At that moment, all the pain, loneliness, and years of struggle seemed to fade away. I was at peace. This was where I was meant to be. Months passed, and life in Ken and Lily's home settled into a rhythm. Every morning, I'd see them off to work, prepare meals, and care for the house. I found happiness in the smallest of moments, hearing Ken's laughter or Lily's cheerful voice. Their gratitude made all the difference. One quiet afternoon, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, Lily approached me. "Mary, I've been meaning to say something," she said. "What is it?" I asked, looking up. "Thank you for everything you've done for us," she said, catching me off guard. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. "I should be the one thanking you," I replied. "You've given me a family again." Lily smiled warmly, and I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. That evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Ken turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, are you happy here?" he asked. His question made me pause. "Yes, Ken," I said without hesitation. "I truly am." For the first time in years, I could say those words with certainty. As I looked around at Ken, Lily, and my grandchild, I realized that I had finally found my place. The shadows of the past no longer held me down. Brian's smile flashed in my memory, and I felt his presence as if he were telling me, "Well done." I whispered silently into the quiet air, "Thank you, Brian." Life isn't always kind, but sometimes it leads us to the moments we truly deserve. I sat back, watching my family laugh and talk, my heart full of gratitude and hope. This was my home. This was my family. This was my future.